So day 6, things are starting to get crazy. So we're now on to day 6 of the grid down scenario, national power outage across the country. So on day 6, right, people, I mean, don't forget the shops were totally raided out on day 3. So on day 6, containers and warehouses are going to start getting raided at this point, if they're not already. And on day 6, as people get desperate because they can't get hold of supplies, you will start to see some professional hunters, you know, like fishermen, maybe archers, maybe sort of air rifle shooters or keen air rifle shooters. You might see more and more of those going out trying to hunt. So you might start hearing, if you live near woodland, for example, you may start hearing gunfire or something from the woodland. That'll be what it is. You may find yourself down the lake and there's 50 people at the lake rather than 5 on a normal given day. You would see 5 people down the lake. On day 6, there'd be about 30 or 40 people down at that same lakefront. So you're going to need to be going down there, being careful not to have all your equipment snatched off you, and to go down there and make sure you don't end up having any fish you do catch snatched off you. And again, last week's show is perfect for that because it talks all about the threats of hunting during an SHTF scenario, because this is why homesteading is the key. But those who are not preppers are going to be those pro-hunter people. Not pro-hunter, but people who are confident in their hunting skills are going to think to themselves, you know what, I'm going to see if I can catch something. Because by day 6, when you haven't eaten for several days, you start doing some reasonably desperate stuff. You're prepared to eat a lot of stuff, right? And don't forget, we had the considerations for the scenario at the beginning, just to lay out based on your environment, whether you're in a city, in a suburb. These timelines are going to stretch out or shrink in accordingly for you, right? But these are to give you the heads up so you can start thinking things through for yourself in your area as to how you would go about mitigating some of these threats. So, relief centres are going to start getting set up. By about a week, you're going to have enough time for the mobilisation, the planning. Because don't forget, when all the communication's down, that's a problem for the government to communicate and coordinate themselves as well, don't forget. Very difficult. Because how do you even contact your staff members to tell them you want to come into work? Relief centres get set up by FEMA, probably. Yeah, like you see in places like, you know, where we had all the rainstorms going on in America. Katrina and things like this, right? FEMA get in there after about 6 days and start setting things up. Or they have things set up by about day 6. And it's pretty limited. And this is a national level, right? This is a national level. It's all very well having a state or having a situation like at Katrina we had and things like this, right? Or like in Florida, yeah, as one of our newest subscribers, Mr. All-American Prepper, he's from Florida and he just had a power outage, right? So you get these situations, they turn up with their relief support vans that you can go there and they'll give you a handout of some, you know, some MRE food out of a bag, basically. And they give you a little, sometimes they have vans and you can plug your devices in to charge them up. Good luck joining the queue for that one. So yeah, your supply chain at this point is completely shut down. Nothing's moving anywhere. Nothing's moving anywhere. Night crime escalations. You're going to probably maybe start seeing those gangs who were the gnarly ones, right? There's not going to be much point the gangs being rocking around in the city centres and rioting and things. There's nothing to riot about at this point. There's no looting shops because they're completely emptied at this point. So night crime starts escalating, which is the home invasions, but it's more like a gang-based thing. It's going to be bad news, day 6. So pets are going to go hungry if you don't have provisions for them. Because animals are pretty good, particularly cats and dogs, but by 6 days, because cats can find their own thing, dogs can as well, but you don't want to be really letting them out on the loose, because it might get eaten by someone who's desperate. So day 6, you want to be, you know, is about when your pets are going to start complaining. Your baby formula, sterilizers, you know, by day 6, you're going to start to have some really serious problems with newborns as well. Trying to keep things sterilized, trying to keep the supply. A lot of mothers like to keep a supply of things, but a lot of things you need for babies, you need to buy kind of like regularly. Depending on where they are in their development is what I mean, you know. So that's a whole new problem to deal with. And of course, that is part of those considerations we looked at early on. If you've got young ones and dependents, you're going to have a whole bigger problem, right? So All American Prepper there's got solar. Good man. I've got an alright off-grid setup here. It's, you know, it's more than a kilowatt, but it's like 600 amp hour of battery bank, which is quite nice to have. But again, this is for things like ham radios, for night light. I can boil water. I've got an inverter, but you have to be realistic about what you expect to do. The other thing as well is like care homes, elderly people's homes and things are going to become... I don't even know what they would do at that point. I'm not sure you're going to find any staff members doing anything anywhere. No one's going to work, don't forget. What are you going to do at work? There's nothing at work. The offices are completely no power, no computers working. The shops are completely no power, nothing left in them. Who's going to work? Nobody is going to work. Including care home staff, probably, right? I dread to even think. At this point, I dread to even think. Daily survival there. I got some bangs for the gangs. So, day 7 then. Feeling like you're in the purge. For those that don't know, I make everything myself for this show, all the animations, the graphics, the graphic design, and build the live show and everything else, so like a one-man band, right? But I will say that the playlist that I put together, I did produce some of the music for this show as well. I do music production, but this is full of Purge samples. I used quite a few Purge samples when I was doing the audio music production for this, for sigmaprepper, and here we are, feeling like you're in the purge, right? For those who haven't seen it. Day 7. Oh, shops are totally cleaned out, like we said yesterday on day 6, right? Now the shops are totally cleaned out. All the stores, just nothing worth eating of anything in there. Your daytime crime now. We talked about nighttime crime going up. Now people ain't going to give a flying you-know-what, right? Daily Survival's loving the sigmaprepper music. I'm loving you too, my darling. Thank you for being a VIP on Patreon. I literally couldn't do this without you. So thank you to all the Patreon supporters, because this is my only income with like less than 200 subscribers on a new channel, because I got kicked off. Well, I didn't, but I did. But this is new. Clean and fresh. Livestock slaughter, check it out. People get desperate. Don't forget, in Venezuela, it wasn't even day 7, it was like day 4 in Venezuela. They already started getting into the zoos and eating the animals out of the zoos. So when I say people get desperate, believe me, people get desperate. And just because these are Venezuelan people doesn't mean that they wouldn't, Western European, American people and Australian people wouldn't act exactly the same way, because you're just a human. You are just a human at that point. Doesn't matter what colour you are, doesn't matter what gender you are, doesn't matter who you do what with that night in the bedroom you are, right? You do crazy stuff when you're desperate, right? Including breaking into zoos, eating the animals. Craziness. So, livestock. You damn sure that sheep are going to be on the field, just... There's going to be cows just lying on the field, just... That people have just jumped over the fence at night, yeah? We've had this happening in the UK already. Already there's been a spate of... I mean, they reckon it's these, I don't know what they are, Albanian or something, gang that go and do it, but they basically steal cows, they kill them on the field, butcher them in place take the meat and then sell it because meat's so expensive. This is what people are resorting to. So you damn right that livestock's just going to start getting slaughtered. So emergency staff shortages. Now the reason that's here is because day 7 is interesting. The reason day 7 is so interesting is because things have got so gnarly that even the emergency staff, so that's your doctors, your nurses, your police, your fire, however much they're trying to keep these systems and services up and running, they're not going to want to go to work. And the reason they're not going to want to go to work is because they're not going to want to leave their wife and their children or their husband and their children at home on their own. While you've got this daytime crime escalations, it's not a coincidence they're on the same slide, right? Because as the daytime crime escalations start getting up there, when I'll tell you what, when a police officer, just think it through yourself. If you were a police officer, right, and that was your job, and you came home at night and your wife said to you, you know, you walk in the door and she's just in tears, the kids are crying, yeah, you're like, what's going on? She's like, a guy came round, he was banging on the door, he was trying to get through the window, we were trying to get him to stop coming in, right, he nearly smashed the window, he was banging really right. Can you imagine if your wife was telling you this when you got home from work? Yeah? Can you imagine that? Do you honestly think that that police officer is going to be going to work again in the morning tomorrow, thinking that he's going to be leaving his wife and children alone while you got these gangs going like door to door basically because they're desperate? Do you honestly think people are going to want to go to work? Even police officers, that's why I'm using them as the example, let alone nurses and care home workers and other things we looked at. It's never going to happen. There's no way they're going to leave their wife and kids on their own at home. Forget about it. Emergency infrastructure failing, right? So this is going to be even the stuff they're trying to get running. Yeah, because governments don't plan to keep things rocking so long. Because they don't expect things to be offline so long. You know, most governments prepare for like 90% of eventualities. Yeah, so 90% of power outages are done and dusted in about 3 or 4 days. So they tend to spend money investing in preparations and continuity of government plans, more so to survive 4 or 5 days than they do for 4 or 5 months because it's so unlikely. But the problem is that if it did happen, there's no provisions. And even the provisions they do have will start to fail on day 7. Right? So, curfew established. So whether you've got... there's another word for that, but basically martial law. Because of the crime levels, because of the hospital situation being overrun and out of supplies, yeah? You're talking out of bandages, out of medication, yeah? Where do you think the hospitals are getting new medication, new bandages and everything, yeah, from? They're not, are they? No. So when that runs out, it's run out. Because the traffic's not going anywhere either. So the curfew is going to be a problem. This is going to be something like, you won't be able to leave your house after 6 p.m. at night, from 9 a.m. in the morning till 6 p.m. you can go out, and then after that, boom, no. So the farm livestock supply disruptions, so the farming, because farmers, don't forget, do have their own fuel supply on site, right? So they have big tanks of gasoline, big tanks of diesel oil and stuff like that, right? So they will be able to be rocking for a certain point in time, but after about a week, they're going to be really struggling to do stuff because they won't be able to take anything anywhere. And the stress and anxiety levels are going to be so high at this point. You're going to be arguing with your wife. You're going to be arguing with your husband. You're going to be arguing with your children. Your children are going to be stressed to hell. Yeah. No internet, no gaming, no nothing for like a week. Yeah, believe me, your kids are going to be having a big problem. And most people, don't forget, don't even have any light at night time because their torches and that were done on day 4. Their flashlights were done on day 4, right? Most people don't have any provisions at all. Yeah? People like us are like at least 1 in 100 in our areas, unless you have lucky enough to be in a prepping community, right? It's like 1 in 100 people are actually prepared for this sort of thing. Less than that, 1 in 1,000 if you're going to be realistic. Best case scenario, 1 in 100. Yeah? So things start getting it amplified when the stress and anxiety is so high, because you've got this daytime crime escalation, because you've got things like the nighttime raids, because you've got the protests going on, the things being set on fire, the sounds of glass smashing up the road and women screaming and kids crying. You'll be hearing these noises at night. And that is going to seriously feed into this stress and anxiety. And if you're hungry on top of that, that's going to be a pretty dangerous mix. And so the next week carries on like this, but ever increasing. So when we get to day 14 plus, right, which is just 2 weeks in with no power, no water, no sewage, no nothing.